The legacy of Daytona 500, first off, why does the Daytona 500 matter so much? I mean, it's not just another race, it's the race. For those who might, be tuning in for the first time or need a refresher, let's just rewind a bit. Daytona 500 has been the crown jewel of NASCAR since 1959, held at the iconic Daytona International Speedway in Florida. This 2.5 mile track is a beast. High banks, long straights, drafting like nowhere else. 200 laps, 500 miles of pure chaos, speeds up to 200 miles an hour. Where one wrong move, especially in the new cars, the next gen cars, that can just ruin your whole day. Can wipe out a whole pack. So we take a little trip back in time and remember some of the legends who conquered Daytona. Richard Petty had 7 wins. Kel Yarborough had 4. Dale Earnhardt Sr., who of course my favorite, finally won in '98 after 20 tries. That particular race was awesome for me. The victory lap that he took, with all the crews on the pit road still gives me the chills. They were all standing out there giving him a 5 as he drove down pit road. More recently, we've seen Denny Hamlin rack up 3 wins. Jimmy Johnson has 2. But it's not just about the wins, it's the stories. 1979 finish with Petty edging out Darrell Waltrip while fists flew between Cale Yarborough and the Allison brothers. That's the stuff that made NASCAR a national phenomenon. And here's what makes it special. Unlike any other sport where the championship game is at the end, NASCAR starts its season with the Super Bowl. Winning the Daytona 500 locks you into the playoffs and etches your name in history. It's unpredictable. Circuit plate racing, means anyone can win if they avoid the big one. The big ones, the massive wrecks that take out half the field, kind of sucks, especially with the next gen car. It's like, that's kind of what happens. You can just be running around all day, just kind of chilling, saving gas, saving tires, wait till the guys up front get a little impatient, create a big wreck and just stay clear of it. And you can go right to the front. Last year, 2025, William Byron powered to victory, holding off a large late charge in a photo finish. That set the tone for a wild season where Carl Larson, which is my guy, clinched the overall championship. So as we gear up for 2026, the question is, who will etch their name next as the Daytona 500 winner? So now let's go ahead and just shift gears a little bit. We'll talk about some of the basics of Daytona. It's the 68th running of the Daytona 500. It's going to be this Sunday, February 15th, 2026, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's right around the corner. It'll be broadcast live on Fox, which, will hopefully be better this season. I really do hope so, because it's kind of sucked in the past. You can listen on the radio on MRN, Sirius XM NASCAR. And for the streamers out there, you can actually catch it on HBO Max if you're subscribed. Qualifying, actually happened last night. The duels are going on tonight as well, so I'll probably be reporting on that tomorrow. The track itself hasn't changed. It's still the high bank super speedway where aerodynamics and alliances rules, but expect packed stands. Daytona always draws over 100,000 fans. With the weather in Florida usually cooperating in mid-February, it should be prime conditions. But we've seen it in the past on Sunday having some rain. If you're heading down, there are tickets still available. But, on site, but good luck. If you don't have a ticket by now, I don't know if I'd risk it unless I live close by. You can hit up the fan zone, meet some of your favorite drivers, get autographs, see exhibits. NASCAR is tweaking some rules this year. They're bumping up the horsepower from 670 to 750 on ovals, under 1.5-mile tracks and road courses. That won't directly hit Daytona since it's a bigger track, but it signals a push for more passing and excitement for a lot of races for the rest of the season. Super speedways like this will still be dealing with the next gen cars and everything that goes with that, which have made drafting way more strategic. Tire saving, fuel saving, stage points, all that stuff matters. It is what it is. We don't make the rules. We just like the sport, so we got to deal with it. But enough with the logistics. Let's talk about the stars who make this thing so unforgettable. You got some certain drivers to watch, whether it's veterans, rookies, or even some newer contenders. It's where the fun really starts. Entry list for 2026 is stacked. Over 40 cars tentatively entered, including some part-timers like seven-time champ Jimmy Johnson and the number 84 for Legacy Motor Club. But let's focus on the big names of storylines, okay? First up, defending Daytona champ William Byron and the number 24 Hendrick Motorsports Chevy. Byron's been on a tear. 2025 win was his first Daytona, and he's got the momentum. Hendrick, as a team, is a powerhouse. They've won the last two Daytona 500s. Kyle Larson, my guy, 2025 champ, and number 5, he's a must watch. Since, he's got that dirt track aggression, you know, but on asphalt. While he's 0 for 11 at Daytona so far, his speed and packs makes him a threat. Chase Elliott, don't, sleep on him either. And the number 9, he's due for a big rebound after a pretty tough 2025. Over at Team Penske, Joey Logano, which I don't care much for, but good race car driver, and the number 22, he's always a factor. Former Daytona winner from 2015. He knows how to navigate the chaos. It just is what it is. Rumors of Penske's dip last year, have been overblown. They'll be hungry. Ryan Blaney in the number 12, he was a 2023 champ. He's been knocking on the door with 11 starts and no win yet, but his super speedway game is strong and getting stronger. Then you got some fresh blood. The rookie sensation, Hunter Zillich. He's just 19 years old, stepping into the number 88 for Trackhouse. The kid dominated the lower series in 2025 with 10 wins and a ridiculous top 5 streak. Teamed with Ross Chastain in the number 1, Shane Van Gisbergen in the number 97. He's got mentors, galore. So there's no shortage of experience he can pull from. But, rookies at Daytona, it's a steep curve. Think wrecks and learning drafts on the fly. Still, if he adapts, he could shock the world. Speaking of SVG, the Kiwi road course wizard who won Rookie of the Year 2025 with 5 road wins, but ovals were his Achilles heel until pretty much late season. Had some top 10s. Daytona's multi-groove racing plays to his strengths. If he nails ovals early, we got to watch out. Other people to look out for: Daniel Suarez jumps from Trackhouse to Spire in the number 7 after a pretty down 2025 season. He was 29th in points. This hopefully will be his reset button. Spire's on the rise with Michael McDowell, the number 71, Carson Hocevar, the number 77. Hocevar actually nearly won twice last year and grabbed poles. And I mean, honestly, he's my pick for a breakout. He also just signed a pretty decent contract too. So we'll have to keep an eye on him. If he can keep his cool down, not do anything stupid, he's a contender. McDowell, he's a veteran driver. Together, Spire could snag a playoff spot right out of the gate. Ty Gibbs, the number 54 for Joe Gibbs Racing. He's entering year number 4 with no cup wins. Sucks. It's got to sting. But with 10 top 10s 2025, he's close. Daytona could be his breakthrough. RFK, you got Chris Buescher, the number 17, Brad Keselowski in the number 6, Ryan Preece in the number 60. They missed the playoffs last year, but finished strong. Keselowski's a 2-time Daytona winner. If they avoid bad luck, they're contenders. What about some of the underdogs? Kyle Busch, in the number 8, running for RCR, Richard Childress, 20 starts, no Daytona win. He's hungry. Brad Keselowski too with 16 tries. These guys are vets and they can flip the script pretty quick. Whew, that's a loaded field. But racing's more than names. It's about the drama on and off the track. So what I would say storylines I'm glued into, to really be interested in watching and, just really enjoying is basically the rookie invasion this year with Connor Zillich. He's got a lot of hype and, others represent the youth movement too, but, sometimes you got to watch out. They can dethrone the vets. Trackhouse is betting big on youth, with Zillich and SVG. If they gel, it's fireworks, then the team rebounds. Spire's investment in talent like Suarez and Hocevar, screams potential. RFK's late 2025 surge, if it carries over, they could steal the show. And Joe Gibbs Racing with Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe winning 13 times combined last year. But Gibbs needs that first W. Let's see. Rule-wise, the horsepower bump, on the shorter tracks might not touch Daytona, but it hints that NASCAR's focus on better racing, especially in the next gen car overall, it's a good thing. It hints that they're trying to do something to make it, better instead of bunch of guys running around the track at the same exact speed. Expect more off throttle time though with the extra horsepower, which will help. It'll reward skilled drivers, especially people like my guy Larson with his sprint car roots. I would say bold predictions from me. If I'm not holding back, I'd say Hocevar, shocks with a top 5 finish. His speed last year was underrated. Shane Van Gisbergen, makes I think he'll make the top 10, proving his oval growth. For the win, I'm going to go with Kyle Larson. He's my guy. I have to. He's due, and his aggression impacts is unmatched. And, the dark horse, in my opinion, would be Connor Zilic. I would say, if he pulls a Trevor Bayne, a 2011 rookie win upset, it could be big. But speaking of big, is for the big ones, it's going to happen in stage 2, taking out at least 15 cars because Daytona odds from early lines, they got Byron as the favorite, at around plus 1,000, Logano and Larson close behind. But remember, super speedways are lotteries. Strategy, alliances, and luck are what rule. Beyond the track, look forward to the fan vibe, pre-race concerts, the flyover, and that moment when engines fire up. It's obviously amazing. It's electric. If you're watching from home, get you some snacks. This one's going to be green to checkered with drama. I would say, kind of wrapping it up, getting ready for the roar. It's like this, folks. We've covered the history, the stars, covered the shakeups a little bit, and the sizzle for the 2026 Daytona 500. It's more than a race. It's a launch pad for a season full of twists. From new tracks like Chicagoland's return to battles for the championship. Whether you're a diehard or just dipping your toes in the water, this is why we love NASCAR. Heart pounding action and underdog stories and that unbreakable spirit. America's racing spirit. Also, not just the 500. I'm a big Cletus McFarland fan. He's going to be running the truck race this year. He's going to be also running in the ARCA race. He's got something to prove. He's coming up pretty quick. A lot of people give him, flack saying he's just a YouTuber. Cletus is far from just a YouTuber. The guy drives anything with wheels and he'll fly anything with wings for the most part. So you can't just discount that guy. So, I'm looking forward to watching what he does, not just this weekend, but with his career. And also Travis Pastrana is going to be running the truck race this year along with Tony Stewart. So that's going to be cool. And it's also a big deal because it's Rams return to this truck series. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Track Talk with Casey for, my little spiel on the Daytona this year, 2026. If you enjoyed this at all, drop a review, share it with a friend. We can leave something in the chat. Until next time, may your favorite driver avoid the wall and chase that Harley J. Earl trophy. See you at the flag stand.